Thank you. Stand for the pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Benton?
Here.
Mrs. Brewer? Here. Mrs. Davis? Yes. Mr. Swagger?
Here.
Mrs. Thomas? Here.
This is a public meeting of the Board of Education for the purpose of conducting the school district's business, and it is not to be considered a public community meeting. There's a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 3 minutes. Upon request of the superintendent, the district shall make reasonable accommodation for a person with a disability to be able to participate in this activity. Recording shall be made of each meeting of the board as an administrative aid and shall be preserved as public documents of the board.
Thank you. And on to the presentation of the agenda. Any additions or corrections?
I do. I have 2 small changes. Under the consent agenda, if you turn to G, the letter G, if you're on a paper copy, that should be on page 6. We added Megan Sayer as a food service staff member. Max has been conducting interviews, and one finalist after we did some reference checks like we normally do, and background checks. So I'd like to add Megan Sayer to the board agenda. And then also, if you go to J, which should be on the next page, under volunteers, we added Riley Schaffner for volleyball. And even with volunteers, we have to do a review process, so that became available today. Because of the time of the year, we thought it'd be okay to add to the agenda. And those are the other changes I have.
Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll second it.
Any discussion, question on the agenda? Call the roll.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer? Yes. Mrs. Davis? Yes. Mr. Swagger?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas? Yes.
Anyone for public remarks? If you don't mind. Thanks, Al. No? Moving on to presentations.
I want to go through, we have 3 presentations tonight. I've given the board a copy of the PowerPoint here. You can see paper copy. I wanted to just review for a few minutes our board objectives and what was accomplished in the 22-23 school year. I'll work through these quickly because I know the board's aware, but just to touch on them real quick. So we started off with area visioning, and as a reminder, we did this back in back in August of last year. We established district objectives, which we're reviewing. We spent some time in master looking at student enrollment. Been more recent as we've been looking at potential compensation agreements. We've talked with just the city a little bit on that and making some progress there, and eventually we'll reach out to the townships as well. When you look at the area of communication, we obviously hired a communication specialist. We've already launched a new website. There's some cleanup to be done there, but that has recently launched. And then you also know that we have a mobile app that's being developed, so that will soon be ready, and we'll have information about that. We've done a lot with improving our social media presence, so we have much more robust Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Done a lot to try and increase community engagement. I put a couple highlights there. We brought back Grandparents' Day. Harvest Fest was in the fall, which was nice. Merry Muffins with Loved Ones. We did some other things as well, too. You'll see a rendering or some renderings of a refreshed Johnny, and we're looking at trademarks. Along with that, beyond just a logo, we're looking at fonts. We're looking at the building crest, if you will, and so we'll go through all of that, and that's still a work in progress. One of the things we've done from a communication standpoint is we work with outside partners more. For example, we have CTEC in there, but we've certainly done more with the city and other partnerships. CTEC was one that's interesting because Craig found a counterpart there at CTEC, so we have better connections there too. And lastly, we put in General Miles there as kind of a special project, but certainly a lot that we've been doing in that area, and it would cross actually multiple areas. So I should have asked before I moved areas here, but any questions about communication so far, visioning? Policy and governance, just to review here, done a lot here. For our district policy review and updates, what we've done this year is we're fairly well organized now about what needs a complete overhaul in terms of policies we went through, and then what needs just some updates or polishing, if you will. As a reminder, this is an area too that we talk about policies, but there's administrative guidelines behind that, which are often the how to do or how to implement the policies and sometimes forms. Derek Busenberg in his new role will be helping lead that initiative once we get the school year up and running. So a lot more should be coming from the policy committee, but again, we made some good strides this year. Board committees, we've done a little bit of work here. We've done some restructuring. I think our committee structure seems to be flowing very well. We have some revamped committees here with communications, finance, strategic planning, economic development. We'll have some more work in that latter committee coming up. Residency is an area we picked up this year too. We really, at the last 6 weeks of the school year, we were able to use a residency officer from an area school district. We did a lot of work up until that point. And I did find it interesting, in the last 6 weeks of the school year, we were able to exit 7 students who are non-residents of ours. So I think that's significant. So we'll be this year starting off where we left off. So we'll be waiting until later in the year, and I think we'll have access to that residency officer again. One of the things we did this summer as a project also is Debbie Lowe really helped with this, is making sure lease agreements were updated. So we went into the database and everything is updated right now. And what we'll be able to do as we get closer to expiration, we'll be giving people notice on that. In the past, some of that has been very stale by years sometimes, and that helps from a residency standpoint. Any questions about policies and governance? Yeah, I'm going through these quick because I know you're aware, but I thought it'd be good to conduct a year review. Instruction, we've obviously done a lot with student achievement data analysis. We have with our curriculum committee now, have a curriculum adoption cycle. Math is our year this year where we have launched our K-12 initiative. This coming year will be science. We're going to do a study, hopefully, if things go well in the late winter, early spring. We're talking about a science adoption. And then we just put the cadence there so you can see English language arts the following year, social studies, and then we'll look at electives. That'll take 5 years, and then we come back in the 6th year and start over with math. In addition to the adoption, which I just mentioned about math, we also have math coaches, and thank you to the board again for helping with that initiative. So we have 2 math coaches, and we have the initiative with the Educational Service Center of Central Ohio participating in a grant there, so they have guidance and leadership to help us. We've done a lot more with STEAM. Obviously, Project Lead the Way has been well cemented in the district, and more to come there, and we'll talk about that a little bit tonight, but certainly put more alignment there between those 2 initiatives. Part of the program of studies we revamped at the middle school and high school. We also have a greater focus now on the 3 E's, so we talk about enrollment, enlistment, and employment, so really getting students on pathways for those 3. Any questions about instruction? Okay, let's go to the last one, is resources. The levy committee operates separate than the school district, but we still recognize the work that was done. So we're very appreciative that both levies were approved. One was about 18 months early so that we do not have disruptions. And it really helps us. Kim's done a lot of work this year with the 5-year forecast and letting us model. And some of it, we talk about a 5-year forecast because that's required, but really we've been able to go out further, and it gets a little fuzzier the further out you go, but it's still an opportunity to look forward and forecast. Kim's done some work with capital asset plans as well too, so we have that tightened down. That again, more to come there, but that ties in more with the 5-year forecast. Health insurance, we've done some work there. We did a mid-year change on that. We maintained our current PPO. Then what we also did is introduced a high deductible HSA. I talked to our insurance consultant last week, and we'll be looking at renewal, getting ready as early as September. So we'll want to get the insurance committee back together. In advance, I can tell you that the data is kind of neutral. It's not as bad as it was, and we're waiting for some of it to reconcile. But it's not going to be a tremendous savings, but it's not going to be. It looks like at this point the tremendous losses that we've had. Double-digit losses in the past. We'll know more once we get the committee together. But definitely some work there. Safety assessment. We've done a lot there. We've done a lot to just secure the environment. Small things like making sure doors are closed and locked, and we're securing what they call hardening the environment sometimes. More to come there. And this year, these silos working now to make sure we have a software that can actually manage doors so if they're propped open. Sometimes that happens. There's extracurricular activities. We'll be able to watch that even during the day as well too. I've been working with the police and fire departments. That's certainly been helpful. Police, we've made sure to have keys and key cards, making sure they have access. With the fire department, they've been part of the initial review, but also we've done some tabletop exercises with police and fire too in terms of what happens if, starting to do some planning there. The Raptor system we deployed last year, and we'll ramp that up this year, but that's more security as you're coming in. So we're screening people. It goes through database, and we're looking at that. And lastly, we've talked about ALICE training. It's now called CRACE, CRACE. And Dave Jennings has been picking up part of his responsibilities for safety and security, and he's been helping to lead that. So we'll be doing more in the area of CRACE, formerly known as ALICE. Any questions about resources? So just a quick review. I think, let's get the school year started. And Mr. Schwager, probably good to talk about a work session again and talk about what we want to. I think some of it's clear about what we want to do this year, but there's some other things I think we want to continue to hone our focus.
Sounds great. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Next, we want to talk about branding, or rebranding, I should say, which is a subset of some of the work that's been done. A couple people I'm going to introduce here. Derek Yoder's here. He's one of our parents, but he's also a professional in this area, and he's joined our team along with our committee, and he's done a tremendous amount of work. Tonight, we wanted to show you just some encapsulation of some of that work. I want to stress that everything is a concept, so it's not a finished product yet, but we're progressing, and it would be nice if we had a little dialogue tonight from the board, a little discussion. So can you put that first PowerPoint up? The first one that you'll see will be the Johnny by side. So the one on the left is on the right is left, and you notice we put a watermark across it, so everyone knows. With standardizing colors, that red that's there, it might not project as well, but we're going to have that specific to a Pantone. It really does align with the Ohio State University red. There's the grays, a couple shades lighter than the Ohio State gray, but we have the Pantones on that as well too, so we'll be able to secure colors. The other thing on the left, if you look at our current Johnny, we do not have a clean digital copy of that, so if you get close and you start to enhance that or enlarge that, the pixelation shows, so we do not even have a good rendering that we can show with that. One of the things that, and this has gone through a lot of iterations, one of the things that we're trying to do here is to have a full body Johnny, and when we get to the next slide, you'll see there's some other ones too. There's a shield, and there's more of a torso as well too. So any questions so far about these two Johnnies or anything to talk about? So again, the one on the left's current, the one on the right is concept.
Looks great.
A big improvement. I think it's a huge improvement. I know a lot of work went into getting the gentleman on the right.
Still refining, and I probably should have said this too. We're looking to trademark as well too, so we'll have control over this. I think it's very important. Mike Giannini's here, and he's been joining our team and been very helpful. When we talk about boosters and organizations, we want to make sure that we have the control we should about where this Johnny is being reproduced and under what privileges, and also we'll have this trademark.
How much does trademark cost?
Well, it doesn't cost anything. Again, Derek Yoder's been able to help us with that, so it doesn't cost us anything. But it's important that we have that now, so we'll have the control. So, any other thoughts or questions? It's needs some refinement, but we're getting closer here, as you can see.
Yeah, compared to where we were.
Derek, anything you want to talk about? You're doing the heavy lifting here on most of this. You want to get in the mic too, so we can.
I
I apologize for my informal outfit. I'm dad and timer today, open houses and scrimmages. As Dr. Wagner said, I think one of the most important things is for the brand overall is setting your colors, and the red will be PMS 200 Pantone Matching System 200, which is Ohio State's red. They use 429 gray. Johnstown's going to be 427 gray, which is just a bit lighter, more silvery. Ohio State's gray is actually pretty dark for print based on what you see on uniforms. So basically the colors that we're going to use now is if you walk into Dick's Sporting Goods and you see Ohio State apparel, that will be the colors you recognize, which will also help with branding around the school and so forth, picking paint colors and that, which I also see in the hand food.
Yeah, that's great. And Mrs. Blair has been helping us with this too, because one of the things that we look at is how this will be reproduced and what mediums. That gray, we initially had the Ohio State gray, which was the 429.
Yeah, it's a little dark.
And it was a little dark when it reproduces. So I believe 427, which is what you see right now, how that broadcast is a little better for us.
And this way, now that we have specified colors for those who don't know, the PMS Pantone Matching System is a universal thing for inks. So that way, if something's printed in China, Mexico, United States, they have that number. It should all match the same across the board, and also with thread colors. So that way, anybody who orders uniforms, whatever, you have your colors, you have your thread colors. Those are universal as well. Those are Madeiras, I believe is the name of the threads. And then we can get paint colors as well that can be used around the school should improvements be made from there on.
Dear Brusenberg, you want to get us the next slide, and then we'll show you what we're looking at with some of the other aspects of this. So in this slide, it's basically the same head as what you've seen on the full body, but it gives us some different opportunities to, use the John. On the top is just, there's different sizes of that you can see. You also see the shields to the right, and what we're starting to get involved with here is starting to show what it would look like in the buildings and having some consistency around font, colors, size, so it's all standardized. There's a tartan in the top there, which we believe gives some regalness to this. You also see even the wording at the middle there and toward the bottom pages in the middle and to the top as you work your way down. Different fonts that we would accept. Again, this is still work in progress, but you start to see what some of this looks like. You can have more of an athletics one there in the middle, but what fonts would be acceptable and not acceptable so that we have a standard. One of the things that came through this process was focusing on the hat a bit, and we actually came up with and I think this was Ruthann and Derek's idea, but it was really kind of coming up with that hat, and then there's a version there where we just have the J and a tilted hat a little bit too. So thoughts about any of these pictures or wordings?
It looks great.
Yeah,
It looks
I love
great.
it. Great.
Yeah.
I love
Fantastic.
the tip of the hat there.
Yeah.
Everything said that.
No, but it's a great point, because it's something that's come out of our committee as we start talking about a tip of the hat and what that means, and acknowledging people. So we've actually tinkered with like how off center or how much that is turned a little bit. So Eric Yoder, you want to say anything about?
Each of the school facilities will have their own
Yeah.
sheet block starting.
Yeah.
I like that.
So
Yeah.
one thing we talked about when we first kicked this off is that it's always been a full body. So when it's on t-shirts and apparel, it's only this big. So there's so much going on with the vest, the tie, the collar, the jacket, the hat, the fists, the cane, whatever it had. So that's what we talked about, breaking it down closer in. We still have the full body available this way to break it down. But we still have the impact of the main part of the outfit of the lapel and the hat. And then adding the stylized J to have a monogram, and then carrying that across to the crest with the tartan. That way it starts to give more of a story. That it's just not Johnny, there's more to it. You got the red coat, you have the tartan, you have the crest that can be carried along to other things, whether it's academic or athletic. Now you have this shape across the school. You can add icons, whatever in that shape. The tartan can be applied to many things too. It could be a graphic on uniforms or on walls in the library. And then the typeface is custom designed based off the fancy monogram J, but a little more. I added it, made it a little more block, so it still has an athletic feel, but has a little bit of flair to the serifs. I've talked to Dr. Wagner as well if the district wants to make that a custom keyable typeface that the school can own. And then the secondary typeface would be something that's a free font that would be available to school that you guys would have to pay no cost for, that could be applied to all computers. Where it says Johnny's and athletics below, that can be set up that it can put any respective sport below it. So golf, baseball, football, you name it. And then again, the J in the crest with the tartan could be applied to athletics, or bring it across institutional, that could be with a more refined typeface, not the blocky here that would be reserved for athletics, but that could be brought across for the district. You have letterheads and whatnot from there.
Any other questions or thoughts? Well, we'll come back to the board and we'll have to do a final approval at some point. But at this point, I think this is where we'll keep working as our team and keep refining. And we're getting closer, as you can see now, though. Is there anything you want to say? Or?
No, I'm just very pleased we've committees worked very hard, and I'm pleased we've gotten to this point. Hats off to you and to the Johnnies.
Yeah, that's right, Tiff. Yeah. And
Thank you.
Mr.
Thanks,
Giannini's
Mr.
been very helpful.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Bismarck, will you go back to the one slide before I'm going to put one more comment to this? On this slide, one where you see the two Johnnies next to each other, when we develop a brand locker, we'll have all of these options in there and what's not allowed. We'll keep the one on the left as part of our brand locker, but it's going to be the retro. So if somebody has they graduated and they want to say, we'll still have that available. It won't be a sharp copy because it still picks them, like I said, but at least we'll have that in the brand locker. But that'll be the retro Johnny, and once we get a new one, then they'll get a new one. At this point, the process would move much faster, so I expect we'll be coming back to the board relatively soon, perhaps with a final rendering. So I gave you paper copies today. I think you have some digital versions too. And any thoughts you have, please get them to us to our committee so we can keep working on this. Again, I want to thank our team because there's been a lot of people working on this, including Mike Giannini. So thank you, Mr. Yoder. Nothing else. With that, I want to, I think we have a copy of just the front page of the thing. The board has a copy of this, and I want to introduce Chris Sewell here, who's here. He's from Meta. Chris, you can speak in a couple minutes, but I'll set it up if you will. I don't want to say too much tonight because we have a big day tomorrow, and there's a ribbon cutting and all, but I know you've seen the proposal, but what we've worked with Meta is looking at and STEAM, and they've made a very significant investment in the school district, and the sponsorship is $300,000. And later tonight, the board will be asked to approve that resolution that accepts the $300,000. That will allow us to provide an enhanced STEAM education all the way from kindergarten through 12th grade. And it's really going to align with some other initiatives. Mr. Sewell, do you want to say anything to the board? And if you He's going to be at our convocation tomorrow too, because we'll do the formal announcement with the staff. I can only keep this the best kept secret so much because I have to have the board approve the dollar amount tonight. So.
Well, good evening to the board and to Dr. Wagner for this opportunity to speak to you today. Just want to say, since 2017, Meta has been committed to our local school district, and we are proud to support Johnstown-Monroe and their commitment to creating pathways for present and future students. This partnership is an opportunity to build a foundation for the future and one day future employees at Meta. And so I want to, tip my hat to, as a Johnny, to Dr. Wagner for this opportunity. And it's all about us and our testament to being good community partners. When we started this conversation, it was just at a conversation. As I've seen him continue to grow in his role, his commitment to ensuring that STEAM education was accessible to students starting at the earlier ages, right? And if we look at data, a lot of data in terms of how we look towards the future is always based on third grade, analytics, right? That is our basically baseline for how we predict the future. And so an opportunity to start at kindergarten and give them accessibility and a foundation for STEM education was important. And I appreciate his commitment to ensuring that those students, not even students today, we'll have consistent STEM education starting at kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow morning to do more of the official, and then at 9:45 we have a ribbon cutting over JES. So I won't say too much, but it is exciting. Debbie Seibel's done an awful lot to get this ready. I also want to thank Mr. Sewell for everything, because this has been a long process. It started back in the fall, and we talked about some different concepts, and one thing led to another, and it met with Meta's goals, our goals. So I'm very proud that we're going to be partners with them in the sponsorship.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Later tonight, like I said, you'll have a resolution to review. So, and that's all I have for presentations tonight.
Anything on board committees?
No, the only thing we'll do, the focus is on getting the school year started and all, but we will need a buildings, ground, and safety meeting sometime in September, so we'll get with our team about that. Relatively soon, we'll want to schedule that, and also curriculum instruction. Want to be able to get back on top of that and show you some of the things. So I expect before the next board meeting, those two committees, if we can work on schedule.
Excellent. Thank you. Can we move to the consent agenda?
Sure. Resolution 23-08-120, approval of consent.
Can I get a motion?
Motion. Second.
Any discussion? Consent,
I'm going to run through these real quick.
if you would.
Okay.
Sorry, say on page 8, 8B. Thought we were just split those out. It's like not there. Do you
That'll
take it as
be
a
under-
whole, or do you take it in
That's
one
the
each?
individual.
It is individual?
She's passed the consent. She's on.
Oh, I'm sorry, am I in the wrong one? No, you're right.
You're on the action agenda,
Okay.
right?
That's under treasurer.
No,
It is on the action. Sorry.
She can't
Yeah,
vote
yeah.
on the one, but it's
right.
under
We
action
pulled
agenda.
it out because of what
Yeah,
you
we
said,
put it
because there's a
under the
potential
action.
conflict
Okay.
too, right?
All right,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
Sorry.
just so everyone's aware, Mrs. Thomas contacted me through her business that she works. There could be an interaction with Meta, so just out of a abundance of caution, we thought it'd be good, so I pulled that out of. But based on the conversation, but thank you. And I'll just run through these, but if you see anything else, let me know. There's a couple items I pulled out, which I'll talk about later. But Treasurer's report is, rather matter of fact, budget stabilization. That's something the school district's been doing for a long time, since 2005. So that's just part of an annual process. Board meeting minutes. Sorry. The ESC Spanish district education. Want to highlight that. We all know how difficult it is to find staff. We had a late resignation, and we're going to have to put some of our Spanish programming on a virtual platform. It means it'll be with another school district, but we're going to have a digital teaching, and then we'll have a proctor and support in the building. But at this late date, it's hard to find staff, especially when there's a July 10th deadline. I also want to tell you that really held up the schedules at the high school, because even if if a child doesn't have, or student doesn't have Spanish, there's movement in the schedules. It does ripple through. So student handbooks, I know the board has seen some of those. What we have on here tonight is athletics and the online. With the athletics, there's some more work to do there. Scholarships are back in. I think we gave you some around that. We also want to focus more on vaping. That'll be a larger discussion, more than just athletics. It certainly affects us there too. So more to come in that area, but I'm asking to approve that tonight. Classified employment, study tables too. We're going to look at too. I should have said, sorry, with athletic handbook. Classified employment, you have the addition of Megan Sayer that I added verbally at the beginning. So that's food service, 5.5 hours. District tutors, this is a list that it's evolving. So these are some of the tutors we typically hire. We're going to get you some, but there'll be a couple more that get added. Next section, we have supplemental employment. There's a few positions that are still missing here that are forthcoming, especially in area of basketball, but these are the positions we have right now. I do want to highlight our new position here is the basketball assistant coach position. So that's the one the board approved, and we're actually filling that position now. So that's more of a significant. Volunteers, we're always appreciative of volunteers. So we have a list here. And then I want to highlight again the Riley Schaffner, who I added. And then that's it for consent unless there's questions.
Questions, comments? I know we spoke about vaping, and for the parents out there, vaping is a very large issue that we're experiencing all the way from 6 through 12. I mean, it's really an issue that the school board and the administration is going to take on this year to try to get a handle on this, figure out what's causing it, where they're getting it from, who's all, really trying to go after the source of the vaping on this. So that is one topic, and you as parents out there, make sure you're trying to know what your kids are up to. I know I have a child in high school. It's very difficult to always know what they're doing. So I do say, this is an issue that is very big, and there are a lot of people out there vaping, even people that you would not expect to be vaping, and they're getting it from somewhere. So those are some of the stuff that we're working on. I do want to mention that. And then study tables. I do appreciate the work on the study tables, Mr. Busenberg, and working on evolving that as well to make sure we're getting a good product at the end of the day on the study table. So I appreciate it.
I think with all of our focus on teaching and learning, this will actually be a natural connection there too. And Mr. Brickner's done a lot of work on this as well too. He's actually been talking to Ohio Health and some others we're working on. So we want to do more with the vaping and provide the instruction on that and some guidance.
The district tutors, I had one question on that. Those are as needed or they're?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just a list. And then
Yeah. But one of the things we're trying to do a better job of is we don't want to have the board approve them after the fact if we can help. So if someone doesn't work, then we don't. Yeah. Right. Yeah. That we don't. We're not going to obviously compensate them, but this will allow us if needed.
Any other questions, comments? Call the roll.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Boer?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis? Yes. Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas? Yes.
Treasurer.
We have 3 donations. We have a donation from the Siegfried family for the April Rooney Memorial Scholarship. A donation received from the city of Johnstown for the fireworks and the use of our facilities. And a donation from Hexion Incorporated of office furniture and cubicles for the new board office, which I can attest are very nice.
If I can get a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Discussion. Just to thank the Siegfrieds for their donation, Hexion, and then the city of Johnstown fireworks. That's just so you know out there, the school spent some dollars to get some portable electrical work done so that they can hold the fireworks and do those things under the agreement that as they generated dollars, they would reimburse the schools for those. So that's what the $2,500 is for, is to go back towards some of those costs that we expended when we did the panel for the food trucks and everything to draw power off of us. So that's what that's for, just so people know that why the city's giving us $2,500 for fireworks. So that's an agreement we made to keep them here and moving forward. Any other questions, comments? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Boer?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis? Yes. Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas? Yes. Yes, with it being affecting.
Yeah.
This is to, in accordance with the superintendent's contract, to award a performance bonus based on goals established by the board, and like I said, in accordance with his contract.
If I can get a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Comments, discussion? I think we've discussed this as well. Part of when Dr. Wagner was hired here, instead of just putting the dollars into the salary amount, one of the things the board had discussed was putting in performance bonuses, setting some standards and some stuff we wanted him to focus on. And then we would essentially, as a performance appraisal at the end, the board would award dollar amounts for that each year of his 3-year contract. So the board met and discussed this, and we set, and it was a lot of the stuff that he went over at the beginning of the meeting with the math series and the healthcare and some of the student achievement, focusing on those areas. So we wanted to make sure that the new superintendent coming in would focus on certain areas and that were measurable. That's one of the areas that we struggle is how do you measure certain things. So that's we as a board decided, let's go ahead and do this and put in some performance incentives to go ahead. That way we guaranteed we get some focus on it. And I do thank Dr. Wagner for a fantastic year. I think everyone that's been working with him. This district moved forward in this last year tremendously in a lot of different areas. And it's because of Dr. Wagner leading that and being laser focused on these areas. And I'm more than happy to vote for this achievement. So any other questions, comments?
I would agree with that. Well said.
I agree with that as well. I think Dr. Wagner has made a tremendous effort with student achievement, but also understanding the staff and coming in and getting everybody rallied together. I think that's been a huge accomplishment. Thank you.
Call the roll.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Boer?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Now on to your recommendation.
Okay, there we go. Resolution 23-08-123 is certified employment.
We get a motion.
I'll make the motion. I'll second.
Want to call this staff member out. Kathy Benton is obviously related to Alan, and we've talked about this. It's not typical to hire staff related to as a board member, but we actually reached out to her. Alan had no involvement with this, and as in keeping, I would say that he should recuse himself in the aspect of this, which is why I took it out of consent. Yeah, well, I'm just stating the obvious so people know. We did reach out to Kathy. I've known her in educational circles, and she just recently retired, so this works out for us where she'll do long-term stuff. As I said before, we're having some challenges finding staff, and she was willing to step in, especially in the area of students with special needs. It's difficult to find licensed staff. So we put up the 90 days. It could be shorter. We'll see what happens.
I can get a motion. Oh, we did. Sorry.
Yep.
I do want to thank Kathy for stepping up because this is, the long-term subs are difficult to find, and then to find somebody with 30 years experience in this area is unheard of. So
Well,
we're
hoping that
fortunate.
You find someone at least that will graduate in December so she can be
Yes.
replaced.
Yes.
You mean
So,
reassigned.
no,
Yeah, right.
Replaced.
No, I do appreciate it. Any other comments, questions? Call the roll.
Mr. Benton?
Abstain.
Mrs. Boer?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Okay, resolution 23-08-124, Meta New Albany Data Center sponsorship. And I'll highlight again, this is a sponsorship in the amount of $300,000 to fund enhanced K-12 science, technology, engineer, arts, and mathematics, known as STEAM, for the Johnstown-Monroe School District.
If I can get a motion.
I'll make the motion. Second.
Discussion. Obviously, thank you very much again, and we'll certainly honor this appropriately tomorrow.
Yes.
Very exciting.
Call the roll.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Boer?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Abstain.
All right. Any board comments? Any questions for? All right. On to you.
Okay, a couple things. Athletic ticket pricing, we haven't had a public meeting since then, since there was a vote, but I did send you a summary. I'm assuming I'm keeping with the wishes of the board that we'll keep our prices the same for this coming school year. So, okay. Mr. Brickner's been keeping us updated. I won't get individual votes, but it was a split, but majority was among the athletic league, and it was determined to raise prices up to $10 per event. We're going to stay with our current pricing, and we'll study it this year and look at it. There was some discussion also in this about whether to upcharge for cash, whether using credit cards online. Again, we're going to stay with our standard process and not make any changes, and we'll study that. But I do thank Mr. Brickner, Mr. Busenberg actually helping with that. So, but if anything, I'll keep you updated. As a reminder, our fireworks are rescheduled for September 22nd, and certainly looking forward to that. A lot of plans moving forward. There's a meeting later this week, and we'll bring some of the Northridge administration into the meeting as well too, since it's during the homecoming game, and they'll be there as well.
Is the game moved, or is it 7 o'clock?
Right now, we're keeping it the same, but we're going to talk about that.
Okay.
It'd also be an opportunity we talked about is can we celebrate our businesses and our partnerships at that. Okay. Yeah, that's the idea. It actually can be a very nice event because we should have a good showing fireworks, but also homecoming kind of fits in nice with partnerships and working together. So we'll be looking for that too, and I'll need some help from the board and contributing some ideas into that process. But yeah, that'll be a big game on the 22nd. I'll provide updates as they come. Like I said, this week we have another planning meeting. The city's been tremendous with this too, and the community helping with this.
Can we sell advertisements on the scoreboard that night? Or is that a part of the discussion?
Oh, we look at that and see. Yeah, it's on my goals and our objectives, and we have to look at our scholarships fundraising. I went through it quick, but even in the athletic handbook, we want to take the scholarships, see when the last time they distributed monies, contributions, but we also want to have the scoreboard there too. So I'll add that to my list. Obviously, the next two bullets. Preparations for new school. I do appreciate everyone's efforts. New staff were here on Friday, which went well. Today, first day for all staff, for all teachers being back in. Obviously, convocation tomorrow, a lot to celebrate there, and appreciate the board being in attendance. So we'll see a lot more about that tomorrow. If you can be there around 7:45 tomorrow in the morning, would be great if you can fit that in your schedule. The ribbon cutting, we scheduled 9:45. So what'll happen in the schedule is we should be done with our presentation from about 8 to 9. The band plays from about 9 to 9:15, and then we should be able to dismiss and move over to the elementary school. And Mr. McDonald has done a great job with media, and we have a fairly significant list of people who are coming that want to see this. And then those who weren't able to come should be able to look to a future event as well too, because we'll have some ribbon cutting for other buildings. I was telling Mr. Sewell today, even we heard from the Lieutenant Governor's office, and I think he'll be able to make the September that, which will probably line up nicely with the high school or middle school and opening their STEAM areas as well too. So more to come on that. But tomorrow the district focus looked at the elementary school. I mentioned this a little bit already, but we continue to talk to the city about compensation agreements. So we've had 2 meetings. We're scheduling a 3rd meeting. So the idea there is we want to be prepared for when a business comes into Johnstown. We have a compensation agreement now with the city of New Albany. So any properties that are within New Albany Business Park, we know how that works. There's 100% abatement, but then we're made whole through an income tax model. So a very cooperative relationship and discussions with the city, but it's also very intricate and detailed. So more to come, and there'll be a 3rd meeting in the next couple of weeks as well too. So ideally, if we could, hopefully, and I say hopefully because there's a lot of variables with this, but perhaps by the end of September we would have an agreement. So we'll need more engagement from the board and city council. There's also the possibility that we could have a joint meeting maybe in October of the city council and the school district if there's an interest. And it might be, I think, ceremoniously nice if we had the 2 organizations together and we could each vote on the compensation agreement. So that's the objective. We'll see what happens. But we're moving forward with that. A couple of things that are miscellaneous. Just want to give you some updates. Student enrollment. Our student enrollment has dropped again. Last year we ended around 1722. And I say that about because it fluctuates. It depends. If we have a child absent on a day and we say that they're absent, but we find out afterwards that they moved 2 days early, it'll show as a decrease in enrollments. We're about 1722. This year we're starting about 1650, so we're dropped. We've dropped significantly. A lot of this is due to the turnover of properties. So you've seen the loss of about, I think, 50 to 60 properties.
It's over 60 homes.
Yeah. So
are gone.
Yeah. So people are trying to find other residences. You see the turnover, some empty nester homes that do children to get to. So if it follows a similar pattern, we'll be decreasing. We've decreased and then we'll build up in the year. I know that won't be our pattern forever, but for right now, that's where we are. So, some of that 1650 again, that's approximation. I'll have better numbers for you in September, and this is typical with every school district. But there's some students who withdraw, some are still establishing. Just so you're aware, and Debbie Lowe has been really leading this, we registered 12 new students today. So this is how much of this is in flux. So 12 new students today alone are now. And I want to tell you, too, for some of those students, it's going to be impossible to get them started on Wednesday because we have schedules, we have to get lunches ready. well, too. So some students most likely will start at Monday, but we'll get them online as quick as we can. The older grades are the hardest, especially in high school, because you have to look at transcripts and placement and some nice placement exams. So, if you hear any complaints, send them to me. But we need a little bit of time we just can't bring people in on Wednesday, the first day of school, especially as we're registering 12 more today. Open houses are going on now. That was just crossed over with tonight's schedule of the board meeting, but certainly some good work there. And I do appreciate the maintenance staff and Dave, Jenny, because they've done an outstanding job just getting the school district ready. From cleaning and waxing the floors and making sure everything looked good, and they didn't like a wax, so they'd strip it and put it down the second application. Gymnasiums were taken care of. So really just a lot of good work there, and the buildings do look nice. If you hear anything, we did have a problem with the HVAC at the elementary. We believe that's rectified. Our system's drawing outside air and it was stuck open basically, so it was drawing in that hot humid air, and it was on the first floor. So we have a temporary fix, and a long-term fix is coming to replace that system. So
Is that under warranty?
I don't know the answer to that question. I don't think it is, but I don't know for sure. I know that Dave, when I talked with him earlier, today's working. But I'll find out. Two more things real quick. Had a nice meeting with Intel today. If you ever heard of Khan Academy, KAHN, it's a free system that's available, and you can go online and look at it. Oh,
Dan
you
and I
did?
looked at
Oh,
Khan
okay.
Academy
Okay.
extensively.
Okay. Well, interestingly, we met with our friends from Intel today, and we had a meeting scheduled, and they are looking at Khan Academy. There's, it's free right now, but there's an updated version, and it's kind of similar to adaptive education, where there's some things you can do when kids are, well, I shouldn't say kids, I was going to say kids struggling, but really could be on the top ends too when you're trying to vertically advance some students. There's some flexibility in there. And they talked to us about math, and we said, and we've really got math down. So the next day we talked about science, and actually they're very much excited about that. So there'll be a follow-up meeting in September. Mrs. Almendinger, they were talking about the middle school. Apparently the middle school uses Khan Academy more than any other building in the school district, and it was over 400, over 400 some hours. They were very impressed, actually, per student on average at the middle school. So that's in math. But we think with science, that'll tie in nicely, especially because of the marriage with math and science. So we'll be focusing with Intel and Khan Academy, K-12 STEAM, K-12 STEAM. Too.
So we integrate Khan Academy, not just in middle school. Academy, and I know we've set up some other guidelines, and will we include that and assimilate the two?
It's a possibility. We'll have to look at it. I didn't want to do it in math right now because we have so many moving pieces there, but in science, we thought we'd start. If that goes well, we could look at middle school, it could be K-12, and we could grow that throughout the school district. I think the idea there too, and it is, what are we doing to help students prepare for that next level, getting to the E, so they're getting ready for employment, enlistment, or going on to college. So, enrollment. Okay. So more to come on that. We'll bring that to the curriculum committee. So that just happened today, so that's all fresh. And lastly, I want to thank you very much for the performance bonus. This really is a team. I say this from the bottom of my heart. It's been tremendous working with the board. Administrative team has been tremendous. When you're new and coming in, it's it's difficult, and trying to there's a long history here, and you want to respect that, but also do the best you can. And it's been a tremendous relationship. I do appreciate. I'll talk about this with them tomorrow at the congregation. I do appreciate all your efforts, because this doesn't happen without the team, and that includes the board helping us create conditions to be successful, right? And but the administrative team as well too. And we've really done some things this past year that I know pushed us a little bit, but I appreciated the fact that we would look at things. We spent a lot of time in committees. We were very thoughtful. We've measured, but we made some significant moves forward. Yeah, I just truly appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you.
And that's all I have.
I did want to go back to the athletic ticket pricing. Do thank you, Mr. Berger and Mr. Busenberg, because that was concerning to me that was a fast-moving train, and we were going to be forced to raise prices. But that resolution that they came up with is good. So I do appreciate you guys stepping in there quickly to at least slow that down a little bit for us.
Yep.
All right. Anything else? If I get a motion to adjourn.
I'll second. I'm
Call the
trying
roll,
to meet the teacher for my kids.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mrs. Boer,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes,
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
meeting adjourned.
5:52.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So he's gonna go.